Welcome to Health Coach for Women, a podcast where we explore alternative and holistic solutions to better health and wellness through intentional living. Now, here's your host, Marsha Roopchand-Walker.
Dear future husband, find God, find yourself, then come find me, by Nancy Guzman. Are you looking for a husband in 2024 or sometime in the near future? That's today's topic. Thank you so much for joining me today on another episode of Health Coach for Women, a podcast where we explain alternative and holistic solutions to better health and wellness. And I'm your host, Marsha. Of course, I always have a quote that is related to today's topic. So I decided to do something a little different today and switch it up. So I started out giving you guys the quote first at the very beginning. All right. I wanted to talk about that today. I wanted to talk about finding the one, essential qualities to look for in your future husbands. Now, I don't know, some of you may be on the dating scene. Some of you may be looking for a life partner, whatever, right? But that's what I want to talk about. How do we choose the right one? How do we make the proper selection? So that's what I'm going to dive into today. But before we get started, hit that like button, share, and subscribe. All right, let's dive right on in. What are some things that we should look for in a mate? Of course, a lot of people always want to start out with the physical, right? That's important. You have to be physically attracted to someone, right? You have to find them attractive, right? That's important. But what are some of the most important things, right? We need to cover those things. Now, I'll say the first one I would say, and it's really not in any particular order, and maybe I should have ordered it by matter of importance, I guess. But I would say emotional stability, right? Emotional compatibility as well as stability, right? Because some people aren't emotional stable, right? Women, we have a lot of emotions, right? But sometimes we need to make sure, not sometimes, we need to make sure we ourselves, first off, I think this is what I want to say first. I think before we go into a relationship with anyone and finding and choosing a mate, we need to have a great relationship with ourselves first, right? So I would say, yes, that will be number one, having a great relationship with yourself first and really knowing and understanding who you are, knowing and recognizing your flaws and always working towards improving them, right? Because none of us is perfect, right? We all have some type of flaws or whatever. And that's okay because it's what makes us human. And but when we are able to recognize our flaws and maybe our differences, different ideas and ideals, and different values, this is how we can get to really know and understand who we are. And in the process, knowing who and what type of person we should select that matches our compatibility, right? So I would say emotional compatibility and really making sure that you know thyself first, making sure that you know yourself and having a great relationship with yourself. Remember last week I talked about materialism, and materialism doesn't come from seeking materialism, how it could take a toll on spirituality, right? I talked about that last week. But sometimes we are looking for happiness in all the wrong places outside of ourselves, when really true happiness comes from within. So first we need to really establish having a relationship with ourselves and having that happiness within, getting to really know ourselves. That is important. And when we do that, we can then know of what type of person that we want to be with, that can share in who we are and enlighten and even brighten and elevate us to a higher level, right? Because in each relationship, one is a teacher and one is a student. And every encounter with people that you meet, you will experience that. because there's always a lesson to be learned when we meet people, right? Um, but being able to share the important values and goals, right? Being able to share some of your important values and goals. What are some of your important values and goals, right? Is it your faith, your religion, your belief system? What is it that you believe in? And you want to share that with someone who believe in the same thing that you believe in. Now, don't get me wrong, there are couples out there who are very happily married and they have different faiths, different religious backgrounds, and they seem to mesh very well. So it's not to say that it's impossible and it couldn't work. But what I am saying is to find that compatibility, right? That you guys share. All right. And what would you say that you're not willing to compromise? What are your standards? What are your values? What do you hold dear to you that cannot be compromised? And if you know those things are true, that you hold dear to you, that you're not willing to compromise, stop trying to force and change people to either believe what you believe or to teach them something that maybe they have no interest in and they don't believe, or whatever it is, right? It can be anything, because everybody don't have the same family values as far as raising children, right? As far as maybe long-term goals. So these things are important, right? We need to make sure that we have emotional intelligence where we can listen to what someone else is saying, right? Without being judgmental or critical and emotional, right? Um, and sometimes that can be hard, but it's by developing this emotional intelligence and maturity that we can do better for ourselves as well as our potential partner. All right. So that is of vital importance. And being able to understand one's love language, you know, being able to understand one's love language, that's so important, right? Because how I express my love language is very different from how my husband expressed his love language. Okay. And I just wanted to say, July 19th was our 6-year wedding anniversary. So we celebrated and it was beautiful, wonderful. We went out and had fun. We went to the comedy club and it was awesome. Right. I just wanted to throw that out there. But and being able to understand one's love language is important. You know, one's love language could be touch, right? Uh, touch. Another one's love language could be words of affirmation, right? Or it could be something totally different. It could be showing appreciation of, buying gifts and doing things like that. So being able to understand each other's love language is important because that way you build a stronger communication. You build a stronger understanding, or even better yet, an understanding of how you guys communicate, right? In that area of the area of love languages. Now, a good book that I could recommend you to read is, I believe his name is Gary Chapman, the Five Love Languages, something like that. I have the book, very good read. Okay, so the next one is trust and reliability. That's very important. Without trust, you don't have anything, right? You have to have a level of trust. And so, what are some signs of a trustworthy partner? What for you, what are some signs of a trustworthy partner? Is it someone who, is very transparent with you with everything that they're doing, who don't hide anything from you? Is it where, you know, that person, when their phone ring, I don't know, they're not afraid to tell you who's calling, or even if an ex is calling them or something, like there's no uh secrecy, right? There's no secrecy in that. They're very transparent and open. Or it doesn't even have to be that. It could be signs of trustworthiness of them maybe opening up to you about maybe things from their past, right? Or maybe opening up about something that they feel very vulnerable about, maybe growing up through in their childhood, maybe some bad experiences, right? Now, of course, when you're just meeting someone, you should not be throwing up all over the person, right? Meaning spilling all of your past experiences, all of your trauma, all of that. No, you should not be doing that, right? Because obviously that can kind of scare someone and run them off. No. So it's just building that relationship, building the friendship, right? Building a friendship, earning one another's trust, so that you can then be open to share and explore deeper things that you may want to later discuss, or maybe you don't want to discuss them, right? But it's important. That's why this is why, okay, this is why I'm going back to the very first thing, right? Healing and getting to know yourself, knowing yourself first, and knowing that that you're ready to be in a relationship. Because to be quite honest, some people just aren't ready, right? Some people want to be in a relationship, but they truly just aren't ready because they haven't healed from either that past relationship, that past trauma, that past negative experience that they experienced. You have to be able to move past that and heal, because it will show up later on in your relationship. Okay, I guarantee you it will show up later on in your relationship. All right, so that's why it's very important. So, signs of a trustworthy partner: transparency, right? That person willing to share or everything with you, right? Sharing almost everything with you. And I'm not talking about, things from the past. I'm talking about just open and transparent, just willing to give, share, right? The openness of pure honesty, right? And operates with integrity, right? Operate with a level of integrity in the relationship, right? And so also you want someone who is consistent with their, not just with their words, but it will show in their actions, right? Because people can say many things in their words, but it's the actions that shows the true person, right? Because a person can say I love you all day long, right? And they respect you, yet they don't come home till the next morning or something like that. Or you're finding numbers in their phone or whatever, right? It's you want to make sure that a person is showing you consistency. And of course, you should be doing the same. It's a relationship is not a one person receiving, right? It's not a one person is the taker, take, take, take. It is give and take, right? It is an equal exchange, right? It is an equal exchange between the two people, right? So you want to make sure you are establishing that, right? So trust as well as reliability, right? So when your car breaks down, can you rely on that other person to be there for you? Like if it's within their capability, or be able to rely on them to say, okay, well, I'm going to send you an Uber. I'm going to send you a Lyft because I'm at work, but I want to make sure you're okay. This is someone who's showing signs of that they care and they want to make sure you're okay, right? That's obvious. Now, the next one is skills, right? We know how important having open and effective communication is, right? That is of vital importance, right? In addition to being trustworthy, but having open and effective conversation, right? And having good communication is having good listening skills, right? Having good listening skills, right? Listening without being without being defensive, and speaking, right, without being offensive, right? So if you are the person speaking, trying to voice your opinion or what you're feeling, what you're expressing, you want to make sure that you're expressing it in a respectful manner, right? And where you're not in anger mode, right? Because when people are angry, they say things they don't mean, or they say things that they mean at that time, right? And it can be hurtful, right? So it's always best to have a clear, level head, right? If you want to resolve an argument, if you want to resolve a misunderstanding or whatever, it's always important to make sure that when you are having a sit down for a conversation, making sure that the other person is open to hear it too. Maybe they're the hot-headed one and they don't want to hear what you have to say, right? So given that cool off period time to just, you know, diffuse the situation and address it at a later time, right? It's important to address it, but you want to address it when both people are level-headed and they're not hot-headed, because in a heated argument can really get out of hand sometimes, right? And so you want to make sure that you are having good conflict resolution strategies, being open to hear what that other person has to say without interrupting them, right? Even though sometimes you want to go ahead and jump in and interrupt, let that person finish what they're saying, and then you piggyback and address what they're saying. And you can either agree in what they're saying or disagree and respectfully give your reasons why, right? It's a couple's partnerships, relationships, right? They're not always going to agree, even in business, right? You're not always going to agree on everything, but you have to come to some middle ground, some common ground where there's a give and take, right? Where there's a give and take and there's some type of resolution where you can compromise, right? You can compromise and meet each other, right, to a common ground. And this is why it's so important to have active listening, as well as expressing and having empathy, right? We want to make sure that we are actively listening to what the other person is saying. Even though you may not like what the person is saying, you may not agree with it, but being attentive and hearing what they have to say, right? That's important. All right. And so another one is shared interests and hobbies, right? What are some shared interests and hobbies? What are your interests and hobbies that you like to do, right? How important is that to have that? You know, how important it is to have those common interests and activities, whether it's travel, whether it's dining out, whether it's going to shows, whether it's, you know, just spending time together at the park, or maybe just doing movie night at home, whatever it is, right? Having those common activities and interests helps keep the relationship strong. It helps because it shows where the couple is bonding, right? And there is also interest in one another. Now, there's some things that my husband liked to watch that I'm not so crazy about, right? Which are those kung fu movies. Sometimes they're really good, but sometimes I don't want to spend hours watching them, right? And then I have to read the subtitles because they're talking in a different language. And sometimes I just don't want to be bothered with that. But sometimes they're really good, but I don't want to watch them all the time, right? So sometimes I'll watch them. Sometimes he may want to watch martial arts, kickboxing. I like it. I like boxing. I like martial arts, kickboxing. I can get into it. Sometimes I just want to do a movie night, right? Action, drama, you know? So everybody have their own interests and different things, but we come together and this is what we do, right? And this is our bonding time that we do, right? And you have to be able to balance individual passions with shared activities, right? Like I just mentioned, right? Also, now what my husband and I do like to do, of course, is travel. That is something that we both love to do. We love to travel and we both love learning. These are things that we both love to do. We both love learning new things, right? Especially when it comes to things that could be very controversial. When you're talking about space, when you're talking about faith, religion, different things. Like we talk about so many different things. Like that's what I really enjoy that. Like we can have a conversation on so many different things.
If you are struggling with health issues like chronic pain, being held back by past traumas, or feeling overwhelmed and hopeless, please know there is hope. There is help. Transcendence, a woman's guide to healing and self-love for better health, happiness, and abundance, is a blueprint to help you get your life back and reclaim your health. Within its pages, you'll learn how to elevate your existence by shifting your mindset toward the positive, focusing your energy on what's really important, using gratitude to feel deep appreciation, changing your gene expression through epigenetics, building resilience, and living in a state of flow, feeling love overflow within. Go beyond an ordinary life. Transcend. Buy it now.
And just being able to share and have those common interesting, and it makes it more fun when somebody share those interests with you, right? Another one is financial compatibility, right? Now this one can be a tough one, right? Because sometimes one spouse can make more than the other, right? Financial compatibility. Are you okay with your spouse making more than you? Is your spouse okay with you making more than them? Are you the type, if you make more money than your spouse, that you rub it in their face? I don't know. These are the things that people have real issues with, right? Not putting someone down because they make less money than you. Remember, it goes back to, again, standards, right? And what you're willing to accept, right? Some people want the idea of having a husband, right? And this idea of, oh, he needs to look like this. He needs to earn six figures. He needs to have a corporate job. He needs to have that, right? Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't have standards. You should all have standards. But are you willing to meet someone halfway? And I'm not saying you should settle, right? That's not what I'm saying. You shouldn't settle. But see what is outweighs the most. You have good person who really enjoys your company. You share a lot of ideas and interests. You share family values. You share all of these common interests. Yet he may just make a little less than you. Maybe he's a store manager at, I don't know, at a fast food restaurant, right? Maybe he doesn't have that corporate job that you was thinking of, but he has a job, right? So we have to look at things and we have to be like, okay, he's not out selling drugs on the street or into some mafia crime thing or whatever. I mean, like you have to really look at, the whole picture here and see what that person really has to offer and what they bring to the table. And what do you bring to the table? What do you offer? Because it's not just about you, right? It's not just about you and what you want. It's not just about me, me, me. What about that other person? You think that man doesn't have values in what he wants in a woman? He has values just as well. Okay. He has values just as well as in what he wants is in a woman, right? And some men, they don't like women who, share a lot of their body, that half dress. Some do, some don't, right? Some like, when they first meet them, that's what attract them. But then when they're really with them and they're getting married and or whatever, now they want you to tone it down, right? And I can see where the argument was for the woman to say, well, you met me like this, right? I could see that, right? But again, that's where the compromise, being able to express what we are feeling and compromising, meeting someone in the middle, right? We need to be able to do that because, like I said, men have standards and values as well, right? A man doesn't always want a woman with a potty mouth who cuss in one sentence, there's like 5 F words, right? A man wants a woman with some class, some style, some pizzazz, you know, or a little bit of mixture of both, so it all depends. Each person is different. So men have standards and values just like we do, ladies. They have standards and values just like we do. So it's not just about what we want, it's about what do we have to offer and to bring to the table as well. All right. So the topic I was on was on financial compatibility, right? Financial goals and habits, right? What is the long-term goals maybe for your financial future? Are you looking for someone to just take care of you? And is that person okay with that? And if so, that's fine, right? Are you looking to, I don't know, build a legacy? Are you looking to share and build with your partner and just be able to live the life of whatever the life you dream of? That's perfectly fine, right? Um, there's an importance of financial stability and planning. There's an importance to that because if you have one person who has goals for making sure that they secure their nest egg for the future, and yet you have another person who spends because they're living in the now and they want to make sure they get all the latest clothes and handbags and shoes. Can you see where it can cause like some conflict? Can you see where that can cause some conflict? It can, right? And when you guys are managing money, it has to be a team effort, right? Now, one may be putting in more than the other because maybe one person earns more money than the other, right? And so maybe this one spends money on the household items and food or whatever, and this one spends the money on whatever other things, whatever your financial and family dynamic situation is, right? But the overall picture, the overall goal is that you need to be able to manage money as a team. That's important, right? And you need to be a helpmate for your mate, right? Um, these things are important. We know that finances is one of the number one things that one of the number ones, if not the number one of the number one things that causes divorce in the US, right? Is finances. So you want to make sure that's firm and you guys talk about it. Don't be afraid to talk about money. And even if you're not in a good situation, don't lie about it, don't hide it. Be transparent, be open, because if you're planning to have a lifelong commitment in future with this potential partner, your potential husband, you need to be honest, right? You need to be totally honest, all right, rather than hiding and pretending. Like everything is okay when it's not, right? So you want to make sure that you're working on your credit, making sure that you're working on fixing and repairing your credit, making sure that you're paying your bills on time, making sure, all those things, all of those life things that we have to do, right? You want to make sure that you're doing that and staying on top of that. Because remember, when you improve your credit, all it does is give you more buying power, more leverage, right? So think about that. All right. Now, the next thing I want to talk about, the next segment I want to talk about is support and encouragement, right? Maybe you want to have a business. Maybe you want to start a business. Maybe your husband feels like you need to just stay focused on having a job, right? Or it could be vice versa, right? What's important is being each other's biggest cheerleader, right? That's important. You want to have that support. A lot of times you see that there is no support, right? A lot of times you can see that. And a lot of times you see where couples, they stand by that person thick and thin, right? As that other person is trying to strive and achieve their goals. That is so important to being that cheerleader, that support person, that encourager, that person who's going to be there to emotionally support them through some tough times, right? And also being there to celebrate each other's success, right? So maybe your husband wants to start a business. Maybe he wants to quit his job and just go full-fledged into this business. And maybe you're not agreeing with that because you want that financial stability. It's important, right? So maybe you guys can have a real serious discussion on, listen, I understand your goals and what you're trying to do, but I think it's important that you still have some type of stable income until you build. And when that income from the thing that you're working on, that you want to become your business, can surpass your income, then maybe you have to be open and you have to talk about things that's of concern. You have to talk about it. And it's so much better when you do. It's so much better when you do talk about these things. Okay. And let me see. I just want to make sure that I covered everything. Right. So that support and encouragement is so important. And you want to be able to provide emotional support when somebody's going through a rough time, when they're striving, because becoming an entrepreneur is not easy, right? Starting your own business is not easy. It comes with challenges, right? And you have to sometimes put in more hours than your regular job, right? You want to be able to be a good support system for your potential spouse, right? And celebrating the wins of that success, right? Celebrating those wins to see that, hey, your spouse or you and your spouse supported you throughout your time of you striving for what you want to achieve. And they're right there to support you. And they're right there through it all, thick and thin. You're ride or die, right? You want that. You want to have that. And it's so important to be able to have a person who's there for you, thick and thin. All right. And another important thing, when you are choosing your mate, and I guess I should have made this probably number 2 or 3, right? Family and social dynamics, right? Family and social dynamics, understanding each other's family's background. You can learn a whole lot by somebody's family background, right? What type of family did they come from? This actually should have been up there with emotional capability, right? Trust and reliability. It should have been in the top 3, right? But I guess I'm saving this one for last because it's important. Well, not for last, I'd actually have some more. But family and social dynamics, understanding each other's family backgrounds, right? Balancing family expectations and boundaries. Another thing you have to do is be able to set boundaries. You don't have to have your family all in your business, right? Sometimes, family could get in the business and can make things worse. If you allow it, you got to set boundaries, right? Being able to set boundaries and really knowing what type of family is this potential spouse? How is his relationship with his mother? How is his relationship with his mother? Does he have an estranged relationship with his mother, or does he have a great, good relationship with his mother? Is he a mama's boy? Right? These are things you want to look for and you want to pay attention and know. You want to know these things up front, right? You want to pay attention. You want to observe the interactions. You want to just be aware and know what's going on and being able to navigate social circles as well as friendships, right? This is important, family and social dynamics, because plenty of times people, when, they say when you're getting married, you're actually marrying not only that spouse, but you're marrying their family. And that's true. That is so true. Another one, right? I have a few more. I thought I was close to the end, but I actually have a few more. All right. So long-term vision, aligning your future goals and plans. What are your future goals and plans? Not just for your own individual self, but for the relationship as a whole, and the importance of a shared vision or future, right? And being able to plan for potential challenges and changes, right? So I'll use myself as an example. My husband and um, I say we're good for now, right? But later on, we'll be retired in another few years, right? We'll both be retired, and knowing me, I'll probably still be moving and jiving, doing things, but we'll be at retirement age, right? In a few years. I still have some years to go, but we'll be able to fully retire, right? And so you need to know, like, what are your plans for that? What is the future? What's the future plans of what we need to do when we transition to that stage, right? That's important, having those goals and setting up and knowing what it is that we want to do, where we want to live. Maybe we may not even want to be here in Ohio, right? We've talked about that. So it's just being able to align goals and plans, right, for the future, and planning for potential changes. Okay. And another thing is that's where finances can also come to play, because now at retirement age, what are you setting up now for your nest egg for tomorrow, later on in the future when you retire? Do you still want to get the same income you're generating now? Or do you want even more money? Or are you able to live with what you have, and knowing that what type of lifestyle that you want? Okay, this is what we're able to have each month, and this is what we can do with what we have, right? So all of those things are important, and they should be talked about, right? Physical attraction and intimacy, right? The role of physical attraction in long-term relationship, that's important. Ladies, are we still keeping ourselves up nice, making sure that, that we're getting ourselves, not say you have to get dressed up all the time, right? Because I have those moments where I just want to be in a t-shirt and I don't want to do anything. I just want to relax, right? Um, but what about still making sure that you take care, maintaining your self-care, maintaining your wellness, maintaining your physical appearance, making sure that you're healthy, because at the end of the day, so we all want that health, right? We want health because that is vital to our overall wellness and well-being, is having health. We want to make sure that we're still making sure that we are still attractive to our mate and our mate is still attractive to us, right? Um, and being okay with maybe they put on a few pounds or two, maybe you've put on a few pounds or two, and you guys are okay with that, right? Because everything is not so superficial, right? When you love someone unconditionally, right, it's not all about the image, so to speak. So I don't want to sound contradictory, right? But it's not all about the image, but yet you still want to look good, right? You still want to look presentable, right? And be appealing to your mate and he appealing to you, okay? And building strong, intimate connections, right? Building, I mean, you can have just cuddling, right? Just cuddling, just taking walks in the park, right? Just having that connection is so important, right? And maintain, because it's that level of intimacy, right? Level of intimacy is not always related in as far as the actual act of sex, right? Of course, that is a part of it. Of course, that we're all adults here. Of course, having intercourse, relations, right, is a part of that intimacy, right? But outside of that, you can also have intimacy outside of that as well, right? And maintaining that romance, that love and affection over time, right? That is important. So lastly, finally, I got to the last one. So lastly, personal growth and independence, encouraging each other's personal development. Well, like I said before, my husband and I, we always love learning. We always love learning so much into like the spiritual realm and the galaxies beyond. And we're into a lot of stuff, right? With that, when it comes to that, we love that, right? And learning so much about just different things. We have that common interest. And one's personal development, because it helps us learning more about certain things that we have interest in, really helps in our own personal development, right? And being able to balance the togetherness with that individual growth, right? So there could be other things where my husband is growing individually on his own through his own experiences, life experiences, or at work or whatever, and learning more about self, such as I, right? Learning more about self as we go on, because you never stop learning, right? You never stop learning. And the key is to be able to balance that togetherness with individual growth, in addition to fostering that independence within the relationship. So still being to maintain your own individuality and independence within the relationship, if you understand what I mean, right? And so there are still things that I'm working towards, that where my husband supports me, but is not of his interest, right? Is not of his interest, and vice versa. And that's fine. Okay? That's fine. That's totally fine. Now, I think I covered a lot. So for you, I asked you the question, finding the one, what qualities do you look for in your future husband? What qualities, these are some questions you want to ask. What qualities are you looking for in your future husband? What qualities do you have to offer, right? What are your standards? What are your values, your beliefs? What cannot be compromised at all? So when you can know these things and understanding these things, and really, really get to know yourself, remember that's important. Getting to know yourself and loving yourself, right, is the first relationship you can have, is the relationship with yourself, right? And when you can do that, it makes everything else easier. Okay, so that is all I have for you for now. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you did like this episode, I want you to go ahead and hit that like button, share, and subscribe. Until next time, bye for now. Ciao.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of Health Coach for Women with Marsha Roopchand-Walker. If you've enjoyed this episode, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. That helps others find the show, and we greatly appreciate it. Once again, thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next episode.